What if I told you researchers can predict divorce with over 90% accuracy just by watching a couple argue for 15 minutes? That is not clickbait. That's actual science from Dr. Joan and Julie Gottman's groundbreaking marriage research. But then in Catholic circles, we hear another number, that couples who practice natural family planning, or NFP, only divorce at a rate of 2%. Which number should we believe? And what do these statistics really mean for Catholic couples trying to live faithful, joyful marriages? Stick around and we'll find out together. Welcome to the Catholic Couch, the official podcast of the Catholic Counseling Institute, where we integrate the wisdom of the Catholic faith with modern psychology to give you real tools for real life. I'm Amber Pilkington, Catholic therapist, wife, mother, and woman who's married to a NAPRO and NFP-only OBGYN. So trust me when I say I'm not only supportive of NFP, I've lived it, promoted it, and walked alongside couples who use it. NFP is good. It's morally right. It's a beautiful way of cooperating with God's design for fertility and family life. And research backs up many of its benefits. Women report feeling more respected in their marriages, couples often experience more shared responsibility, and many describe a deeper sense of intimacy and trust when their fertility is honored rather than suppressed. But if we oversimplify the data to keep repeating NFP couples only have a 2% divorce rate, we risk creating shame for couples who faithfully practice NFP but are still struggling in their marriage. Because here's the truth, NFP is not a magic shield against conflict, trauma, or emotional disconnection. Unfortunately, if you've been told that NFP is akin to marriage insurance, well, that's only part of the story. That's why I want us to explore all sides of this today. How Gottman's research gives us practical tools with 90% predictive accuracy, and how NFP is still profoundly good, but part of a much bigger picture of Catholic marriages. So you've probably heard the claim that couples who use and practice NFP only divorce at a 2% rate. And that's a powerful statement, especially when the US divorce rate is often reported as between 40 to 50%. But here's the nuance. That 2% figure is not from a massive national representative peer-reviewed study. The earliest references trace back to Robert Lerner's 1970s survey of Catholic couples and later surveys conducted by NFP organizations like the Couple to Couple League. Those surveys consistently show much lower divorce rates among NFP users compared to the general population, but the exact percentage varies, and it's not confirmed by large-scale longitudinal research. Here's what we can say with confidence, that NFP couples often report higher marital satisfaction and stronger communication. A 2017 study surveyed 2,560 married NFP users, and they found that 74% rated their marriages as very happy, compared to 61% in the general U.S. married population. The same study found that 95% of husbands and 93% of wives felt NFP improved their relationship in some way, especially in communication, respect, and shared responsibility for fertility. In a 2008 study, we found that couples practicing NFP had significantly higher levels of sexual satisfaction compared to national averages, in part because fertility discussions increase emotional intimacy. In another study from 1989, we found that NFP users scored higher in measures of religious commitment and marital stability than Catholics using contraception. So clearly, there are real measurable benefits to NFP. And as Catholics, we affirm even more that NFP isn't just a tool, it's a way of life that respects the sacramental meaning of marriage. But here's where I want to be careful. If we keep repeating NFP couples never divorce, or the divorce rate is only 2%, then my caution is that we might unintentionally risk shaming couples who do practice NFP but find themselves struggling or even facing separation. They may start thinking, what's wrong with us? We're doing everything right, so why are we hurting? The truth is, NFP is good, right, and beneficial, but it's not a guarantee of relational health. Just like going to Mass every Sunday is essential but doesn't mean you'll never experience suffering, practicing NFP places your marriage on the foundation of God's design, but you still need human skills, communication, repair, forgiveness, and emotional attunement. So the message isn't don't trust the 2% stat. The message is NFP brings real benefits, but it's part of a much bigger picture. That is where Gottman's research and attachment theory become such gifts. Because while NFP aligns us with grace, Gottman helps us understand the skills that build connection day after day. So if you're listening to all this and you're a faithful Catholic couple, you might be thinking, we do practice NFP. We've made sacrifices. We're committed to the church's teachings. Why do we argue so much or still feel disconnected? First, hear me clear. There is nothing wrong with you. Struggle in marriage is normal. Every couple has differences. Dr. John and Julie Gottman's research shows that 69% of marital problems are what he calls perpetual problems, which means they never go away because they're in personality differences or family background or other core values. This means even the healthy couples aren't defined by the absence of conflict, but by how they handle it. And here is where the Gottman's research is so freeing and helpful. After decades of studying thousands of couples, the Gottmans found that the best predictor of divorce is not the number of fights you have, but whether your relationship gets stuck in patterns he calls the 4 Horsemen: criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. The presence of these patterns and conflict predicts divorce with over 90% accuracy. Now imagine if instead of feeling shame that your marriage doesn't match the 2% narrative, you could instead look at your relationship through the lens of, are we falling into the 4 Horsemen? And if so, what are the antidotes? The Gottmans show that couples who learn to replace criticism with gentle startups, contempt with appreciation, defensiveness with responsibility, and stonewalling with self-soothing can dramatically change their trajectory. And all of these antidotes align well with our Catholic virtues. Also remember that as Catholics, it's not just avoiding divorce that we're after. We want high marital satisfaction. We want to be living our vocation in a way that is a witness to our children and to the world of the beauty of marriage, not just getting along, refusing to separate, but having terrible fights and terrible disconnection and feeling really miserable inside. Fidelity is a wonderful thing. I fully support it as long as it is non-abusive. And it's also important to know that it's okay and good to try to strengthen the marriage from the inside out. Here's what this means. If you or your spouse are struggling, you're not doomed, you're just human. And there are skills that you can learn, in my opinion, by not talking about these skills or the role of attachment theory in relationship, then we might unintentionally deprive good Catholic couples of some tools that they can use to strengthen their marriage from the inside out, so that not only are they together, but they're living happily and emotionally connected. And this connects so beautifully with attachment theory. Secure attachment, the sense that your spouse is emotionally available, responsive, and consistent. In my opinion, the kind of attachment that God desires to have for us. This secure attachment protects marriages, even in the midst of conflict. For Catholic couples, this echoes what the Catechism teaches, that marriage is a covenant and a mutual self-gift. Our psychology and our theology are speaking the same language. What heals is attunement and trust. So here's the bigger picture. NFP is good, holy and beneficial, but it's not the end all. It can't on its own heal communication wounds, attachment wounds, or regulate insecurities or nervous systems. That's where the tools of the Gottmans and attachment and even Catholic therapy come in to support your marriage in all of the very human places where grace meets struggle. So if you use an FP and still struggle, you are not alone. You are not less faithful. You are simply called, like every married couple, to ongoing conversion, learning how to love more fully, to repair more gently, and to lean on both God's grace and the science that He gave us. Okay, so here at the Catholic Counseling Institute, we promise you real tools for real life. So let's get practical. If you're using an FP and struggling in your marriage, here are some ways to move forward without the shame. Number 1, watch for the horsemen. Start by noticing if these patterns are showing up in your communication. Criticism, like attacking your spouse's character instead of describing the behavior that bothers you. Defensiveness, which is making excuses instead of owning your part. Contempt. This is that sarcasm, eye-rolling, or words that imply superiority. The last of the 4 horsemen is stonewalling, shutting down or withdrawing to avoid the conversation. The Gottman's research shows that these 4 patterns corrode trust and connection. But the good news is there are antidotes. You can replace criticism with a gentle startup. I feel blank about blank and I need blank. So one of the examples that Dr. Julie Gottman gives in a lot of her trainings is if one spouse is frustrated that the spouse whose job it is to get the water bill in on time is consistently late. One of the spouses could say to the other, "You are so lazy. Why can't you get it right? Do you know how much money this is costing us?" And that would be an approach that's a harsh startup with criticism and maybe even a little contempt over time. But it might go better to say, "I feel frustrated when the water bill is unpaid because then we incur extra late fees that is money that could be used for other things that we value like date nights. And it would really help me if you could make sure that it gets in on time." Do you see the difference? Replace defensiveness with taking responsibility, even a small piece. Here is where us Catholics have a leg up, in my opinion, because confession and the sacrament of reconciliation not only gives us grace, but it gives us practice for owning our stuff. And that is really important in marriage. You can also replace contempt with appreciation. Make sure that you're expressing gratitude daily to your spouse, even if it's something small. The Gottmans recommend at least 4 specific gratitude statements each day. And it doesn't have to be in person. Maybe you can make a note to text your spouse every morning. Here's the second thing you can do. Build a culture of appreciation. The Gottmans show that healthy marriages maintain a 5-to-1 ratio. The truth about the 5-to-1 ratio is this is what the Gottmans say should exist in conflict. In every other day, ordinary interactions, the ratio is more like 15-to-1 is positive to negative interactions. That means you don't need to be perfect, but you do need frequent deposits of kindness, humor, or tenderness. In Catholic terms, think of this as living out St. Paul's call in 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Encourage one another and build each other up. Even small acts of appreciation are beneficial for you and for your spouse. Number 3, practice attachment in daily life. Ask yourself, do I turn towards or away from my spouse when they make bids for connection? Research shows that couples who consistently turn towards one another build secure bonds. That might mean looking up from your phone when your spouse makes comments, or offering a hug at the end of the day, or showing interest for something that matters to them, even if it's a tiny bit boring for you. This advice echoes the Catechism's vision of marriage as a partnership of the whole life. See Catechism of the Catholic Church, 1603. Not just a sharing of a house, but truly being with each other. Number 4, integrate prayer and repair. As Catholics, we believe grace transforms nature, but we still have to show up. One of the most healing practices you can borrow from your faith is the sacramental rhythm of reconciliation. Just like we confess to God, couples need to confess to one another. A simple, humble apology and a request for forgiveness can reset the tone of your marriage and home. Try praying together after conflict, even if it's brief. Lord, help us to see each other with your eyes. Heal what is wounded. Strengthen what is weak. Number 5, don't struggle alone. Sometimes couples need help. And that could mean attending a marriage enrichment retreat or meeting with a Catholic therapist or even reading a book like the Gottman 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Seeking isn't a failure. It's faithfulness. And one of the things that we hope to do here at the Catholic Counseling Institute is to offer you authentic Catholic psychology information and tips that you can use in your real life before you need a therapist. So if you're listening to this and thinking we're doing NFP but still struggling, please know you are not broken. You're not the exception. You're actually the kind of couple that God wants to pour his grace into. And with both spiritual and practical tools, your marriage can not only survive, but thrive. So here is where we land. NFP is good. It is holy. It is a faithful response to God's design for marriage and family. And yes, research shows that couples who practice NFP often experience deeper respect, stronger communication, and a shared sense of responsibility for fertility and family planning. Those are real benefits worth celebrating. But NFP is not a magic wand. It doesn't erase human weakness or guarantee that your marriage will never struggle. When we overfocus on the 2% divorce rate claim, we risk setting couples up for disappointment or worse, shame. Shame that if NFP works for everyone else, why are we still arguing? Why do we feel distant? And shame makes us hide. So my fear is that shame would lead these couples into the shadows instead of coming forward and feeling like it's okay to say, we need help with some of those practical tools. So if that's you, let me be clear. Struggling in your marriage does not mean that you are less faithful, less holy, or even less Catholic. It just means that you're human. It means that maybe you're struggling or haven't learned emotion regulation skills or have some pretty profound attachment. And that doesn't make you bad. It just means that it's important to know that that's part of the equation too. And hope and healing is possible. That's where the Gottman's research, attachment theory, and Catholic psychology come in. These are not replacements for the church's theology. They are complements. They show us that love is more than a feeling. It's a skill. And it's a skill you can learn even if you've been married for decades. So if you or your spouse are in a hard season, I want you to take this away, that you're not alone. Struggles don't disqualify you from the church's vision of marriage. They invite you deeper into it. Through prayer, reconciliation, and skills like turning towards each other, practicing appreciation, and repairing gently, you can move from discouragement to hope. Because the real goal of Catholic marriage isn't just avoiding divorce, it's becoming saints together. That and the procreation of children. And the path to sainthood is never without crosses. So yes, NFP is great. And yes, the research matters. But the bigger truth is this: your marriage is worth fighting for. And there are tools, spiritual and scientific, that can help you grow closer to God and each other. Hey, if you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe and share it with another Catholic couple who might need some encouragement. We just topped 1,000 subscribers, which completely blows my mind. But the more engagement on these videos, the more YouTube's algorithm thinks, oh, that Catholic content, maybe people do want to see it. And so they'll share it with more people. Make sure you comment in the comments below and let me know if you would like specific videos on any of these tools and how to apply them from a Catholic framework. And if you want to dive deeper into the tools that Gottman or attachment theory offer, check out the resources that I've linked in the show notes. And if this episode was interesting to you, make sure you watch the next one that I'm teeing up right at the end of this one about why your dishwasher fights might not actually be about the dish. But whatever you choose to do next, remember that there will always be a place for you on the Catholic couch.